Now let's talk a little bit about nature versus nurture. And there was a study done on Vietnam veterans. And one of the things they wanted to study was levels of testosterone. Let's say that somebody has a lot of testosterone. Let's say that you in the future you have a son and or even a daughter and they have very high levels of testosterone. Does that mean that their behavior is predetermined? By the way, testosterone is the male hormone which causes guys to be rough and tumble and be loud, and that's what testosterone is. So, if someone has a lot of testosterone, does that guarantee their behavior? So, let's write down Vietnam veterans, and the formula is: does testosterone, high levels of testosterone, equal more aggression and more problems? That's what they were trying to figure out. So, if you have a child and they have a lot of testosterone, can you actually harness it for good? Or is it just all negative? That's what we mean by nature versus nurture. So, what you need to know for the Vietnam veterans was the following. They discovered that those that have high testosterone, but they came from a higher social class, that equaled to them being a more rational person. Now, it's not the fact that there's money, but the fact that the money provides a good school, the money provides counselors, the money provides tutors. So just because you're born with a lot of testosterone, that doesn't mean that your child is going to be loud and crazy and you won't be able to control them. No, it doesn't mean that at all. If you can provide, you don't have to come from a higher social class, but if you can provide counseling and tutoring, and if you can put them in sports and get them focused on releasing their energy in the sports arena or even karate classes, then they might be a more rational person. So that's the Vietnam veteran study, and that's what we mean by nature versus nurture. Now, the other story for nature versus nurture, well, the one thing I want to add for nature when it comes to the Vietnam veterans story, I could ask you a test question. Is this an argument for nature or nurture being more powerful? And the answer is nurture. Okay? So Vietnam veterans, the answer is nurture. We can nurture that testosterone to be rational. Now let's talk about a medical accident. So there was an individual and his name was David Reimer, and he was a twin. And this is way back in the early 60s. There was an experimental way to do a circumcision. Now, if you don't know, a circumcision is when you cut off the excess skin of the penis on a little baby. So what happened was they were going to do this circumcision on one of the twins. However, they were using a device they'd never used before. It was a heated needle. It was really hot. And what happened was, since they were not used to using that little piece of equipment, that machine, it was too hot and they accidentally burnt off some of the baby's penis. So what happened was, there was a doctor that was on television and he was talking about nature versus nurture. So they went to go visit the doctor, and the doctor said, you know what, if you raise this little boy as a girl, everything will be just fine. So they trusted the doctor and they raised their little boy as a girl. So the hair was grown out, and there's even a book about him, as you can see. Now, even though he was nurtured to be a girl, and they gave him a girl's name, and they raised him to be feminine, it did not work. It didn't work. You cannot nurture someone to be a different gender. Ultimately, he went back to being a boy, and he was much happier being a boy. So, the story of a medical accident, is this a story for nature or nurture? You need to know that a medical accident is a story about nature. You can't nurture someone to be the opposite gender. So, for the Vietnam veterans, it's a story for nurture. For a medical accident, it's a story about nature. Let's look at this expression. Having a daughter is like watering your neighbor's garden. This is a proverb. Now, this proverb is saying that, hey, if you have a daughter, it benefits other people. It doesn't benefit you. Let's talk about gender stratification. Unequal access to status because of a person's sex. Now, in the United States, there is gender stratification, but it's all over the world, and we're going to look at the two examples of the United States versus worldwide gender stratification. Now, the first one we're going to look at is called selective sex abortion, and this is an abortion based on the sex of the fetus. Now, this happens, it used to happen in China a lot, Iraq, Iran, and India, and Korea, and North Africa. Now, in some parts of the world, you don't have to know the countries, by the way. I'm just giving you an example. But you do need to know the definition. Now, what happens is, abortion is done based on the baby's sex for different reasons. For example, in China, they used to have a one-child policy. And if they could only have one child, well, then they're going to want to have a boy, not a girl. And in India, they have what is called the dowry system in India. The dowry is if a girl is going to get married, the dad has to provide money for the wedding and for the husband. That's a dowry. So, if you had a daughter, you're going to have to save money. And most of India is very poor. However, if you have a boy, that means you're going to get money. So, the dowry system in India and China's one-child policy are reasons that selective sex abortions have happened in other parts of the world. Still focusing on other parts of the world, there's something called honor killing. Killing a female who disgraced a family. It says Egypt, Iran, Lebanon, India. And then it says Germany, England, and then the United States. It's happened in these countries because what happens is they leave their country and they practice their culture in the United States or in Germany or in England. Remember the saying, you can take the person out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the person. So honor killings happen for anything as little as if a girl was rumored to have been talking to a boy, it doesn't even have to be proven true. If a girl is rumored to have been, even if a girl turns down a date with somebody and rumor gets out, the father and the brother can perform an honor killing. And what happens is sometimes this young lady was, if you look at these photos here, she was taken in public and it was done out in the street and people were throwing stones at her. So, an honor killing is another example of gender stratification from another country. Finally, we'll talk about, in reference to other parts of the world, we're going to talk about bride burning. It says killing a bride for her family's refusal to pay an additional dowry. Now remember, a dowry is where you pay so that the daughter can get married. What happens is, and by the way, you don't have to know India and Bangladesh and Pakistan. So let's say that a woman marries a guy and they've been married, and then all of a sudden the new husband will tell the father, hey, by the way, I'm going to need another dowry, another $5,000, let's say. Now he's already poor. Well, what happens is there's going to be an accidental fire in the kitchen. And that accidental fire will probably kill her. It'll probably kill her, but she might also live. And that's what a bride burning is. So, when we talk about a bride burning, it's when they say, I need more money. And if you don't provide it, there might be an accident. And that accident is a fire.